In a 2-hour span, they tried to get her to go to the hospital, and they were unable to convince her. And so they enacted the criteria for a 5150. What we see on camera is her removing something from her blanket that looks like something. We don't even know what it is. You never really see, but it's assumed it's a firearm, and the cop who's standing there starts to yell, gun, 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 she's got a gun, and he shoos everyone out. So even though it's very calm for almost 2 hours, things get pretty crazy suddenly.
Very fast.
And within 4 or 5 minutes, she's dead.
Why would police officers shoot and kill an actress who was in mental and emotional distress? Today, we're talking to Cynthia Fujikawa and Daniel Villareal, who did a documentary called 90 Minutes Later about the killing of Vanessa Marquez. Vanessa Marquez was an actress that I did Stand and Deliver with. Today's episode is going to be very serious. So if you don't like the subject matter, this may not be for you. My name is Lydia Nicole, and this is Acting Smarter Now. So, what inspired you to make this documentary 90 Minutes Later?
You guys, I was very moved when I came to the memorial for Vanessa that you guys held at the
LATC.
LA Theater Center, and I was very moved just by the idea that a group of people that had been connected by a movie were all these years later in essentially a very big transition, and shared it together and came together, to claim one of their own. I found it really inspiring.
So, Danny, tell us who Vanessa Marquez is.
Well, all of us, including yourself, Miss Lydia Nicole, we met a while back when we were shooting Stand and Deliver. And that's how we came to meet Vanessa Marquez. She played Ana Delgado in the movie Stand and Deliver when she was 18 years old. She's fresh out of high school.
And so, what happened to Vanessa that led to this documentary?
Well, Vanessa and I were neighbors out. She was in South Pasadena. I was in Pasadena. And the night before this happened to her, I was driving by her place with my friend. And I said to him, oh, this is where Vanessa lives. And I said to him, I hope she's okay, because she had cut me off a while back. She wasn't speaking to me. She wasn't speaking to some of our friends from the movie. And so on the news and then in Facebook, found out that she had been shot and killed by South Pasadena Police Department. It was shocking, but it wasn't really that surprising. You know,
Why?
she was having a lot of issues, a lot of problems. Very troubled person.
So, for those of you watching, Vanessa Marquez was an extraordinary actress who came on the scene, as you mentioned, in Stand and Deliver, because she wrote a letter to Eddie Olmos and said she should be in this movie. And they had her audition and she got in. And she had quite a good career in show business. She was able to work in ER, and she did theater. She did a number of TV pieces, but towards the end of her life, she was having mental issues, and they were not being addressed. Am I correct? They weren't being addressed, and she had hoarder issues. She just had a bunch of stuff going on. And there were a couple of members from Stand and Deliver who were close to her that she started verbally abusing. And so the cut came. She started shutting people out. The last day of her life, there was some kind of something that caused the building manager, to call the police. Was that what
What
happened?
happened was that she was texting with a friend of hers in Missouri, and she was actually texting with another woman, also this woman Paula, who is also not in California, not in Los Angeles. And both of them had made calls. I think Paula may have called an emergency line, but she instructed her friend in Missouri, his name is Terrence, to reach out directly to the fire station, which he did. And he spoke with the captain, and that individual or that department called the police, and the police arrived at her apartment approximately noon on that day
And why did she ask them to call the fire department?
because she was having some sort of she was having something seizure like.
Okay.
She was, telling her friend that she was having ongoing seizures, and she did not want the police there, but she did feel that she had some friends at the fire department and that they would come to help her and not take her away. And so she called them directly. She asked him to call them directly. And that's how they ended. But then they called police, and I know this because I did get the audio of that phone call. And we opened the film with that phone call, actually, the fire department calling the police and the police saying they'll come.
Okay. And then they got there and all hell broke out, pretty much.
In a 2-hour span, they tried to get her to go to the hospital, and they were unable to convince her. And so they did. They enacted the criteria for a 5150. They had a social worker come over to do the paperwork, and they in that 2-hour period, they just kind of stood and waited around, turned off their cameras for a while, and eventually they told her that they were removing her from the premises and that she was not being charged. And she essentially made an attempt to fight back. What we see on camera is her removing something from her blanket that looks like something. We don't even know what it is. You never really see, but it's assumed it's a firearm. And the cop who's standing there starts to yell, gun, 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 she's got a gun, and he shoos everyone out. So even though it's very calm for almost 2 hours, things get pretty crazy suddenly.
Very fast.
And within 4 or 5 minutes, she's dead.
Mm. So Danny, I remember after the memorial that we did at LATC for Vanessa, you started gathering information to make this documentary. And you had a passion about telling Vanessa's story. What was your motive for being part of this documentary?
Well, it was the least we could do for her, being that she didn't really have anybody else. She she was the only child of her mother, Delia. They had no family, and she really didn't have any friends other than the people that she talked to online constantly. And we consider each other as family, because of Stand and Deliver, and she was part of that group. And when we were at the memorial, we said, we're doing this for her, we're celebrating, but as soon as this is over, we're gonna find out what happened. And so Cindy and I were talking, and then I said, you know what? Cindy said you should bring a camera when you start interviewing people, because I was going to meet up with the reporter who broke the story about her dying, and I said to Cindy, well, why don't you bring it? Because she has a history. She's made documentaries before, and I said, let's do it. So it convinced her to what turned out to be a 5-year journey.
Yeah. You know,
In that 5 year period, because documentaries take time. I mean, they take time. Did you know it was going to take 5 years to complete this project when you started it?
Oh no, no, no. It kept just having a life of its own. Part of it
Yeah.
was part of it was that the police, the city of South Pasadena Police Department, they were not being forthcoming with information. We had to hire Delia ended up hiring an attorney to get to the bottom of this, and they stalled and they stalled What, as far as what they could legally do, they just did not provide us with anything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, first of all, it's a really good question. And I just jotted down a couple of things so I wouldn't forget. But I love your question. Um, and it's interesting to think back on that day and that moment, you know. And what struck me, but I want to say that after having talked to everybody, after having really gotten to know Ingrid quite well, and Willie, and Patrick, and Daniel, I think even though no one has said this out loud, my takeaway is that people were driven by a certain amount of regret for not having been able to change the outcome of this terrible thing. That people saw the signs that something was wrong, but mental illness is a bitch. She's also physically ill, but she rejected all the people that cared about her, and it became almost impossible to figure out how to help her. And so, but I do think that everyone who participated in it felt that that there was some regret, like Daniel was saying, about driving by her house and looking up at her window the night before, you know, and so that's one that was my feeling about this family. And then all the little things that everyone did, even the effort to memorialize her too. I mean, she deserved so much more than being shot to death. And as we uncover in the documentary, there's really a legacy there, and there's a message about what is possible for a young woman with a dream. The other thing I was going to say is that, at the time of the memorial, which would, again, it was just a stunning thing to see that group of actors coming together and just taking their own and bringing her, across. But at that time, nobody knew what had happened. It was all kind of mysterious. All the things that we described to you just now about what happened, that came with months and months, a couple of years worth of research, that little bit of information. At that time, nobody really knew what had gone on. So there was just genuine curiosity about, like, how could something like this have happened? How could somebody that small, that underweight, that physically frail have, caused this, unleashing of all this firepower? What could she possibly have said or done to have this happen? And the answer is not much, really. And as we know now,
Sudden move. It was a sudden move. It had nothing to do with anything other than the perception of the police officer seeing something, thinking he was in danger. Not, there's no right or wrong here. It is a tragedy. It is a horror of horror that we don't wish on anybody. A couple of years ago, my daughter and I participated in a community police program where you go to the police station and you take these classes for about 8 weeks. And one of the things that I learned while we were taking these classes is they took us to the range. They set up simulators, so you have a couple of seconds, maybe 2 seconds, to assess the situation and go. You don't know what's coming at you. You don't know what's happening. These police officers are under tremendous pressure. They're getting ambushed left and right. A situation that was a health crisis turned into a killing. It is horrifying. But what I will say that I learned, and this was after Vanessa's passing, was to do this program and to see how quick a police officer can make the wrong call because of fear, anticipating someone, a sudden movement, and they're shooting. They're not going to stop and go, what's going on? They see something, they're already in a heightened state, and they go for it. It doesn't make it right. It just it was something that I learned, so I want to share that. I also want to say about our cast, Stand and Deliver. We were all young when we did that project. And the beautiful thing about Stand and Deliver, and I've done a lot of projects, is that we became a family on that set. Something happened on that set where we bonded. Some of the cast members bonded more than others, but all the kids kind of, we would meet periodically, have dinner, do go to events together, go to movies together, to plays together, and we have maintained this for 30 some years. And so it is a beautiful thing. With Vanessa, the last time we went to dinner together at Patrick Baca's house, she was already teetering. There was already signs of stuff going on. She was already irritable. She was already kind of fussing at a couple of the cast members, like Ingrid and Carla. It was it was a little uncomfortable, especially she was attacking Carla. I remember that. And I personally, she probably is the only one in the cast that I stayed away from, because when we were shooting, she seemed so fragile to me. And I am such an aggressive personality that I knew instinctively that that I could say the wrong thing to her and crush her. So I was very aware of her fragility. But at the same time, she was very strong. She had very strong convictions. So the contradiction of this frail actor, but yet she could be very stubborn, very strong-willed, and so it was a perfect storm, I think, of what happened, because she alienated people. So there was nobody to advocate for her. There was nobody there to say, wait a minute, this is what's going on. She needs help. Please send the police away. Let's figure this out another way. Also, up until then, we really didn't have any good tools to help people. That because of what you guys have done in making this movie about mental illness and how it affects someone, there's some tools that we now can use. There's a little bit more information, because she wasn't the only one that has been killed by police officers not assessing the matter properly. So in your research, in your going through putting this documentary together, what are some of the tools that you have learned that could be helpful for friends or family that someone watching or listening to may be able to put into action to help somebody who's going through mental issues?
It really, really is, especially when that person is, pushing you away. It's really, really hard. And I kind of, I have a lifetime of experience with this, actually, because of my own family. Well, one thing that comes to mind is, if you're taking on caring for someone or trying to, penetrate that situation, you have to make sure that you don't get burned out and that you don't take it personally. You don't take things personally, that you just try and see beyond, uh, see them as having a disease, obviously to try and encourage somebody to get medication and to get treatment. We had the second or third interview we did was with Julie Carmen, who was working with people who have mental illness. At that time she was doing yoga therapy, and now I think she is a psychologist. But she had an interesting perspective on the whole picture, especially being an artist, and how people like that are drawn into the arts. But she said, I forget what the word is exactly. I think she said it is osognosia, an osognosia, which is an aspect of this of mental illness, is not knowing you're ill. And there's never going to be a moment, even when you're well, even when you're not experiencing symptoms or ideations, you're not going to go, oh wow, I'm schizophrenic or whatever. You're not going to have this big realization that, oh, that's your problem. It's just it's complex. It's a complicated in terms of how to help someone. It's complicated, and that, again, that's another thing I really had great respect for, and curiosity for everyone, and what she had put everyone through, including the people that didn't want to talk. You know, because I know that Vanessa probably put them through the ringer. Yeah, and it's just all very human. And as we know now, it's not that uncommon, for people to be suffering with mental health issues. The stigma is kind of not what it was, like when my mother was suffering.
Now, did you know Vanessa before this
No, I never
happened?
met her.
And who are you connected to in this story?
I'm connected to Daniel. Daniel is
Okay.
my best pal, and he knows very well that I've been on a journey of bereavement with my late husband, and they were friends, and so this was another. At that time that this happened, I was only 8 months into my own journey of losing somebody, so I wasn't I wasn't making good judgments when I jumped into this project.
Yeah, well, when we were organizing the memorial, I had attended Cindy's memorial for her late husband, and it was so beautiful. And I told the guys and people from our group that I said, hey, I should ask Cindy to help us out, because she did a really incredible job with that. And then once she got involved, it was impossible for her not to get involved, especially since she had the experience personally with her mom. That Cindy and other people at the memorial were saying, there's something we're not talking about here, and that is mental
Yeah.
illness.
Yeah, it was never mentioned at least on the stage. When we got out into the lobby, and again, I didn't know Julie either, but she made a pitch to everyone. She got up and said, if you're a storyteller, if you're a filmmaker, you need to talk about it. We need to talk about these issues. We need to talk about mental health. So I challenge everyone here to do that. And I felt like she was looking at me, and and like I said, then we went to talk to her. That's how she.
It's usually the person who says it should be done that has to do it.
Well, we got her on camera right after that. So
Yeah.
yeah, went to her clinic. Even met. We got some B-roll with the patients there that she works with.
And with Vanessa, it's like there are very specific things that happen and things that can be done and things that can be avoided. And I keep saying it, and I say it all the time that mental illness is not a crime, and people are treated like criminals. In an instant, Vanessa went from being a frail 80-pound person who was ill to she became like Rambo, in the eyes of these police officers, and became the perpetrator. And then they had to go and get automatic weapons and shoot her. That is totally bad training. And partly what happened is that Vanessa's mother did not want to go to court, because if we had gone to court, we would have shown how inept the South Pasadena Police Department is. They did everything wrong from the moment they got there until they left, and that is in the training. They get a lot more training shooting their guns than de-escalating these types of situations. And as we have learned over the course of this, is that they should not be put in those situations. They should never be there for those calls. You know,
They should never be put in those
no, no,
situations. I
they
think
cannot deal.
that is that is the most profound thing that can be said. It is unfair to the police
We,
officers who are not
Yep.
equipped to handle mental health issues to come into those
No, they
situations. That and the end, if they do, there should be a special unit that is specifically trained for that, not just your regular
and,
cop, because they don't know what to
and that's
do.
happening
They
now.
have no
That's
clue.
that is happening now nationally. Different states are doing that, and in fact, our city, Venice, California, they have such success dealing with the homeless, and as you know that there's an explosion of. I mean, it's getting really bad. Our Mayor Bass, has a whole new program that is not really working. Oh, it's not good. It's not good. What the we have money, we don't know how to use it. You know, uh, um,
Well, I will say this. I will say
yeah.
this. I saw this in Santa Monica a couple of years ago. How the police handled a couple. Well, how they handled one specific case of a homeless guy who had mental issues. They did a fantastic job. They never allowed it to escalate, yet they allowed the guy to just have his moment. And it went on for a good hour and a half. It went on for a good hour and a half. And what they did was they encircled the guy. We were out at the beach, like right by the pier. They encircled the guy. They let him have his moment. And then at a certain point, one of the police officers walked up to him and just escorted him out with no kind of force. Just I'm talking to you, I'm walking you out, and just walked him out. And I thought it was a wonderful human thing that they did. So I can't, that every now and then you have a police officer who has the mind to go, wait a minute, this guy or this woman needs a human touch. They need somebody to just see them, and it was handled very well. So I don't want to, I don't want to make this about bashing police
Mhm.
officers, but I do agree that a lot of police officers are not equipped and should not be put in those
Mhm.
situations. So they should not at all be put in those situations. So I want to ask you, Cindy, what have you learned in doing this piece that has helped you heal a part of yourself, from your mom's mental illness to having to deal with grief, losing your husband? Has there been a aha moment that gave you hope, that gave you some kind of information to make things a little bit better for you?
I don't know. I think mostly it's been just something big and distracting.
Okay.
Certainly, I mean, I don't, I, I wasn't experiencing any bereavement about Vanessa. I wasn't, certainly learned a lot about, you know, then I was reminded very much about the complexity of mental health issues, mental illness, and what a lack of understanding we have. I certainly felt that I did have a need to express, make my voice heard in that regard. I do have some perspective on it, I think, more than, of other family members as well that I've helped. And they have, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to help people. As far as bereavement goes, I think it just gave me something to focus on that was life or death and super important and had nothing to do with me and my family. Um, I do want to say, to your point about de-escalating and about trying to, invoke the human touch, all things that I agree with. First of all, I just wanted to mention that, again, the police had been there for over almost 2 hours. There was time to take her vitals. There was time to look in her room. There was certainly time to see. There was time to assess whether there was any danger. But I think they were reacting to the environment in there, which was pretty bad. But they didn't do anything to help her at all. They simply were looking to figure out how to collect her, drop her off at Huntington. Is that what that hospital
Huntington
is?
Memorial.
And then get to lunch, because it was lunchtime.
Well, it wasn't the first time they had been there.
And so when things got touchy, it was basically one person's word against everyone else. That person shooed everyone out. By this point, the mental health or whatever, the social worker was down on the street walking to her car. The sergeant who was in charge of the whole thing was standing on the porch facing the opposite direction. There was only one individual who, quote, saw the gun, the whatever it was, which we have his body camera footage. We use all of his body camera footage and others in the film, and you can see what he sees. And then he comes outside and lies to his coworkers on the on record, saying she pulled out scissors and then a gun and pointed it to me and then pointed it to her head. None of this ever happened. So automatically he is already, we don't know what he's done. He's shoot everyone.
He's incriminated himself.
Yes. And then, okay, quick sidebar. If you Google Christopher Perez, rookie cop, you will see a newsreel from several years ago about a young man who helps a girl in, I don't know if it's in South Pasadena or somewhere in Northeast LA, but there's a girl about to jump off a bridge. And this young police officer talks her into not jumping and eventually reaches out to her and pulls her off the bridge. That is the cop that shot Vanessa. Now, I don't know what happened to that person, but what happened that day was that they got on the phone, they called him, they're all escalating the situation by telling her to come out, telling her to come out, telling her to come out. This guy, and it's all in the film and it's all on their cameras, this guy, again, within 3.5 minutes, walks in the door, is called from the station, walks in the door, aims up the stairs, they call her out, she's standing there with all of her Star Wars stuffed animals in her arms and the toy gun, and he shoots her. So I'm just saying that somewhere in our system, or in the system of that police department at least, this young cop who knows how to do the right thing learned how to do it.
But did he know? So I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I just heard you say something.
You have to watch the film and make your own decision. But he's called to shoot her. He's called it. He's not one of the people standing there. He comes and arrives to shoot her.
Why did the social worker leave?
She left something in her car. She went to get something.
Okay, she didn't leave. She was just retrieving something and coming back.
She left at a crucial moment. She left at the moment where they were giving Vanessa the information.
She was rubber stamping the situation.
Yeah, she was rubber stamping.
They needed someone to come and sign the papers so they could take her away, and she was the person who was qualified to do so.
And she was talking to her boss, so she was just not even really an authority. No. She was just physically there to conduct the business,
to move the day along. You know?
Okay, so Danny, what did you learn in doing this documentary? What showed up for you regarding mental health, and maybe how we can do things a little bit better? Because you talked about having regret that you didn't do more for Vanessa.
Well, I talked about it. I inferred that. I believe that was a motivating factor.
Well, yeah. For me, personally, I've been doing this since I was a kid. I'm community activist person. That was my training since I was 14 years old, and Everything I do is community based. And as I grew older, I realized that I am an artist. I'm an actor. I look at the world in that way as an artist, as a creator, and I study human nature and what happened in that moment, in that place, when as an actor you assess everybody's characters, is that these men, because they were men mainly, these men statistically, these men kill these women, these brown women. They have no idea how to deal with crazy black or brown women. And the moment they arrived at her place, because of the way, the disarray, they were totally at a loss. They were supposed to be looking at someone who was sick, as Cindy kind of mentioned it. They never checked her. Never. No one ever touched her. No one made an attempt to make sure that she was okay.
And they were there for seizures,
Yeah,
right?
they were there forever, and they were like scared of her, what she represented. You know.
You just hit a big
Mm.
point that we don't take into consideration. A lot of police officers are in a job that they are afraid. They are afraid of the people. They're afraid of what they're supposed to do. I just want to bring that out, not to, but you hit an
Yeah,
important point that a lot of those officers
yeah,
are
but
not well
hold on,
trained.
because
They're afraid.
hold on,
Mhm.
because we in the process of doing this, we gathered people to help us, and one of the people that we gathered was Ben Clark,
Oh, no. Roger.
Roger
Yeah,
Clark,
Roger.
Roger Clark. He's a police expert. He has testified at some big cases, big thousands of cases, and he said, if you are a police officer and you're scared, you have no business being a police officer. That is the job. A fireman does not run away from the fire, he runs into the fire. A policeman who's scared of an 80-pound woman should be somewhere else doing something else. Not making
I
they
agree.
not
I
making
agree.
they make $221,000 a year in these jobs in South Pasadena, because I looked it up. They're still all working, making lots of money.
The guy who lied and said that she pointed the gun at him and then pointed it to her head got a promotion.
Yeah, I see them. I see them
Mm-hmm.
at the restaurant in South
Mm-hmm.
Pasadena. The sergeant goes
Mm-hmm.
to my dry cleaners. They're continuing to have wonderful lives, and they never took any responsibility for what they did.
So this film has been circulating through film
Yeah.
festivals, and you've gotten awards
Couple.
already from the
Yeah.
film. Well, a couple
I'll
are,
take
are
it. Yeah.
that's very good. That's very good. So you have a wonderful piece of a film to share with people about this process, about what happens to people who are ill, because it's not just about Vanessa. This project kind of mirrors what's happening in society, and hopefully it leaves us with questions. What can we do to make things a little bit better? How can we step in and help? How can we help to facilitate a change within the law enforcement agencies so that it doesn't continue to happen? Because after Vanessa died, there were quite a few other cases that happened in Southern California where people with mental illness were killed by police officers. When is the film coming out so people can
Oh,
see
thank you.
it?
Very soon. We're just mixing the sound right now, and then I will be making it available on Amazon and Tubi and a couple of other platforms where we can just put it up
Excellent.
ourselves. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah,
Excellent.
and I just want to mention that sum up what the film really is about. It's not just about what happened to Vanessa, and we certainly do get into her amazing career, but it's also about what her what she did with her life, and why her story should continue to be told, not because of the way in which she died, but because before her illness, the way in which she lived, which was, she said, I'm going to do this. The likelihood of a little girl living in her grandmother's apartment, who, an
Her
illegitimate
mom.
birth with a crazy mom, and writing letters and just getting on buses and saying, this is my, and coming to that casting session and saying, this is my role. And they gave her a chance, and then she had, and she demanded things that we demand now, which is, better casting and representation. So in the beginning of the film and the end of the film, we talked to girls that were about Vanessa's age when she started out, and we asked them who they are, and we asked them how they feel about this, and we asked them what they're going to do next.
They're actresses.
Yeah, they're all aspiring actresses. Brown.
They're little Vanessas in the
Yeah.
making.
And that's, I think, what I want people to take away. I think everyone knows that, we got a problem on our hands. This is one of many, and we certainly drill down on that through the eyes of you guys. But there's something else to say, which is that, it's the young people that, will inherit this, and that they can also see the possibilities of change.
And also that, we are artists, and we have a certain kind of responsibility to say, it's like being the fireman. It's like we have to run into the fire.
Mm,
We have to.
that's a nice image. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, uh, uh, you said something that made me think that whatever job we go for, we have to be of excellence. So, unfortunately, what has happened, probably maybe the last 30 years, is that people are going to jobs because they couldn't get the job they wanted. There, a good percentage of people are going into jobs that they're just going for the paycheck. That, oh, I could do this, but there's no heart there. It's like having teachers teach who really shouldn't be teaching, having doctors who have no bedside manners. It's, people are looking at jobs, at the qualifications, not so much do they fit them, but ooh, that's a high paying job. I could take the exams, I could study for that, and I can do that, but they don't have the heart for it. When we were growing up, doctors made house calls. They cared about the patients. Today it is a numbers game. Not many doctors know you. The medical system, the way it's set up, you don't get the same doctor regularly. You're, depending on what your health insurance is, you bounce from one to another. um Police officers are not trained properly in that, learn the community, be part of the community. When I was growing up, we knew all of our police officers. And they knew us. And when you were talking, Danny, about the fact that they had been to her place before, it wasn't the first time. It made me remember, when I was a kid and my mother had a messed up husband, I would call the police all the time. And what was wonderful was we had the same officers come, and they knew the situation. And so they handled it, uh, they protected us, the kids. You know, they got him out of the house. They let him know if they had to come back that night, he was going to prison, he was going to jail, and if he kept up, he was going to prison. So there was a when we were growing up, there was a community that people treated their work with excellence, you know, that they really were servants of whatever job they had, not slaves, but that they really were, you know, they were doing it because they loved that, they wanted to serve. It wasn't just the firefighters. Today it's the firefighters who go and they're the rock stars because they're going into the fire, but we don't necessarily have that with other disciplines, other job descriptions. You know, you go into a supermarket and the cashier doesn't want to be there, and
There are no
they're just
cashiers.
throwing your food.
You're the
Yeah.
cashier.
And
Yeah.
well, in the places that there are cashiers, there's no care. It just seems like there's no care, and we need to get that back.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
That's a
it's
really good point.
like it's still about adapting. The world keeps changing, and we all have to meet that challenge. And there is no excuse to not somehow figure out the game. Whatever that game is. I listen to the radio on the way to work and all that, and they're having such a hard case trying to find people to be policemen. Nobody wants to do it. And then you end up with these yahoos who just graduated from high school and never went to college, and then they give them a gun and they give them $80,000 a year because nobody else wants to do it.
We're not vetting people
No.
properly, is what's happening on any jobs. Even in the churches, we're not vetting the pastors. We're not vetting. No, I mean, that's what's happening. We're not taking the time to vet people to say, are you qualified for this? Can I trust you with this group of people? So
No.
I know we're not going to get everything accomplished, but I think this is necessary. And as soon as the film comes out, I highly recommend everyone sees it so that you can see who Vanessa Marquez was, and you can see what happens when a mental illness and law enforcement come together in the wrong way.
Mhm.
I want to talk about you guys as artists. Danny, you not only are a wonderful actor, and I want to real quickly just let people know that you started as a PA on Stand and Deliver, but you ended up getting one of the leads because Eddie almost saw in you that you were the right actor for the job. And that changed the trajectory of your career, sort of.
Mhm.
So can you talk about that a little bit? That by you showing up to be of service, and take us through the steps of what happened, because I think it is such divine intervention what happened to you.
Right. Well, part of it is it's on the individual, whatever will to succeed or not. We're all different. But I've always known that you always have to be ready. At whatever moment somebody will knock on that door, and or you'll bump into someone, and then you will say yes, and then it will happen. But you have to prepare yourself. Like you were saying. People don't have that desire to excel. And I'm may I say I'm going to be 64.
Ooh,
and
I love it. Go ahead.
and I'm still the same 18-year-old kid. I still feel like I haven't even gotten started. You know, and I'm supremely curious, and I want to make connections and do all of those things that it seems like people lack now in society. Like you were saying, there is no desire to do more, to go the extra mile, to put in the time. You mentioned the word servant. That is a very important word. Like I'm a servant. There's nothing wrong with being a servant. Providing that for others. because it always comes back. It's like,
Well, the greatest leaders are
yes,
servants. The greatest leaders are
yeah,
servants. That's the misnomer, is that people think being a leader, you get the title and that's it. But no, the greatest leaders are
yeah,
servants.
and freedom goes hand in hand with responsibility. It's like nobody gets ahead without putting in the time. It's like you have to, and you have to be informed, and you have to connect. You have to find your community, your tribe. You have to look for them. They're there. They're yeah. Even though everybody's isolated and all that, there's ways. There's new ways. There's tons of people out there.
So, what are a few ways for people to find their tribes? What would you say are a few ways for people to find their tribes?
Well, if you're an artist, you go to a museum. It's just like there are things that instinctively you do. I At least for myself, I met Edward James Olmos when I was 17, and I knew that we were going to be connected because that's who I am. It's like,
At 17, did you know you were going to be an actor?
I saw him in Zoot Suit playing at Pachuco, and I was like, I want to do that. I
Okay.
want to be that
Okay.
guy.
So when you were doing PA on Stand and Deliver, that was in
Well,
your
I
psyche.
had
I want to
already I
act.
had already been performing since I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah. I started out as a photographer
Okay.
when I was 14, so I was always aware of the camera, and the power of the images, you know. And then I ended up not only being behind the camera, cuz I don't know if you remember, I was taping our your audition.
Yeah, you taped all it. Yes, I
You
remember.
didn't, you
I
didn't
was
screw up
there
yours,
six
apparently.
times. I was there six times for callbacks. I remember very well.
And so eventually I ended up in front of the camera by looking at what you guys did. I was like, well, I can do that, you know. And but maybe that's just me personally, because it's like Eddie almost always talks about the understanding. I guess I have that, the understanding of whatever it is that you do, and then you and I are very lucky because we also were in the presence of Jaime Escalante, who was a brilliant man, and I've learned so much from him, even though he was, a little bit of a Republican.
He was
He
amazing. He was an
he was
amazing
great. He
man.
was a great guy, and knew a lot, and I mean, it 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 just proves that it really just takes one person. He changed the world.
To open the door. It takes one person to open the door. And I want to add uh, to those watching or listening that finding your tribe is not as hard as you may think. We're in a society right now where everything is on the internet. And so sometimes we take that as we're isolated because we're not face to face. But there's so many groups that you can find on social media. There's so many ways to connect with like-minded people. If you are an actor, join a theater company or start going to more events for actors. The world is opening back up. So there are live events that you can actually go to screenings, go if you're a photographer, not just museums, but go to gallery openings, go wherever the artists live, and just give yourself the opportunity to meet people, be adventurous, say hello to people. If you like people, go on social media and introduce yourself. Go ahead.
There's so much out there. I don't understand. I wrote. I'm a writer also. I write screenplays and such. And I remember on social media, as you say, my niece posted something saying that she was bored, and out of that, I wrote three half-hour episodes about a girl who starts out being bored and then ends up being the queen of the universe. And it's like, how could you be bored? There's so much out there. When I was 14, I discovered the local library, and I really probably read every book in the library. And I made friends with the librarian, and they had a lot of money, and then she would special order whatever I wanted. And there's when I go talk to kids at schools, I tell them, this is a gold mine, right? You're in a gold mine right here. These resources, these teachers, like, they work for you. Make them work. And then the teachers look at me like, oh, don't do that. I don't want to work.
But I think the problem is the last couple of generations have been given iPhones and iPads and computers and left alone to figure out life.
Mm.
We were taught how to look for things. We were taught to go to the library. I mean, that was part of. I'm your age. I remember being in high school and actually taking a library class in ninth grade to learn how to go to the library and look up material and look for stuff. A lot of times, the kids don't have the proper guidance. I worked in the youth authority, the California Youth Authority, for about maybe 12 years, going in as an artist and working with the kids. And I can tell you that those kids didn't have guidance. So a lot of the kids don't have the guidance. They're being brought along, and they don't have the tools. They don't know. The internet has everything, but if you don't know what you're looking for, it's kind of like AI right now. AI, there are a lot of great opportunities with AI, but people are either afraid of it or it's been demonized. There are some bad things to it, but there's still some good
It's
stuff.
still it's still very simple. You just have to unlock people's imaginations. I have this with little kids in elementary school, where I go in, and they ask me, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a photographer, and today you're gonna learn how to take pictures. And they start looking around like, ooh, where's the cameras? And I tell them, right here, this is your camera. And by the end of that hour that I'm there, they're all going around like this, taking pictures of each other. You don't need the camera. You just need to have it in here, that to train your eye to do anything, to do whatever it is that you want to do. You just have to, as Jaime would say, have the ganas and the desire to want to learn.
Well, you also are an incredible photographer, so I don't want to bypass that real quick. You talking about you started doing photography at 14, but you also put a lot of attention and time to it, and you have your pictures in prestigious places now. So it's not just you took pictures. There's a photographer who I love, Chester Higgins, and when I first met him, and he shot one of the first black photographers to shoot for Time magazine. And when I first met him, he told me, "I don't take pictures, I make
Mhm.
pictures." And that's what you do. You make art. You make it with your camera. So I think you have more than what you say you do. You are really highly developed as a photographer. You are not only a wonderful actor, but you are a wonderful human being. So I just want to say that, because Danny, you are the man. You're not the finger man. You're not the little puppet, but you are the man who is full of heart. You bring so much love in the room when you come, and that going back to 90 minutes later, the documentary, it got made because of your love for Vanessa. It got made because you cared about your fellow actor. Even the night before, you were thinking about her. So I just want to acknowledge what an incredible human being you are. I just want to acknowledge that right now. I just want to hold you for a second and tell you how much I love you as my friend, as my co-star, as just someone who elevates the people in the room. How much love and joy and and just inspiration you bring to all of us. So I just want to take this moment and tell you I love you, Danny, and
Thank you for
Cindy.
saying that.
I
You
don't
never
want to
said
leave you out of the I don't want to leave you out of the party. I want to bring you into the party because even though you directed this piece, you are an actress in your own right. You studied at the Actors Conservatory
American
Theater.
Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. Yeah.
Yes. And so tell me a little bit about your journey as an actress.
My dad was an actor, and my mom was also an actress, and they met in New York. But my dad was in a lot of things, theater, television, film, for about 35 years.
Now, did you grow up in New York
No,
or you grew
my
up
brothers were
in
born
a
in New York, but they had me when they came to California. So I'm
okay.
West Coast. I'm LA native. My mom's family were all in vaudeville, and my mom's parents, they sort of, they and my great grandmother, they sort of lost their careers when vaudeville died. And when
Mm.
my mom grew up, so my mom grew up with these, like retired vaudeville actors who were running a liquor store in Cape Cod. And when my mom went to New York and studied theater and acting and then met my dad, and my dad was already in a Broadway show, not doing much in it, but he was in a damn Broadway show. It's called Tea House of the August Moon, and it won the Pulitzer that year. It was like he had somehow, my mom by marriage had sort of reclaimed the family, you know, identity.
Profession.
Yeah, profession, identity, creative identity. And so I think she pretty much threw in the towel and started, a family with him. And he continued to work, and he continued to work until his death in 82. And like I said, by this point, they moved to California, and he got into more on camera stuff. And I think he's probably best known for his role as the gardener in the film Chinatown. A lot of
Oh,
people, a
okay.
lot of that film really has stood the test of time. And in fact, a friend of mine saw a screening of it the other day and called me on the way home. It's like, I just saw your dad. But so that was, and my dad was a big inspiration for me to just know that anything is possible, because he started his career after World War II, after being, incarcerated in Manzanar and fighting in the war. And so he had everything. There was no good reason for him to succeed as an actor, except that he gave it a try, and he was, tenacious. And he was not a spring chicken. He was not coming out of a BFA program or a theater department. He was a guy who had lost everything and said, you know what, I want this. This is what I want. And so I've always decided that would be my, philosophy, that, anything is possible. So here I am, and I am speaking to you from the production office of Freakier Friday, where I make my living right now. But I've also directed this play that's kind of a hit play called The Spy Who Went into Rehab, and I've got the film, which we're almost finished with. It's really pretty much done, except for a couple of thank yous in the credits that I need to put in. And
So, what made you want to get into directing as an actor? I don't mean to cut you
oh,
off,
it's all
but
right. No, I
you
think
you you joined.
frustration.
You just went into it so quick. Oh yeah, so I'm directing.
So,
So I want to
but
know
but
what was the
I'm
bridge.
also acting again, which is really, really nice. But I think a friend of mine, I wrote a play and I had it done, and I won't go into great detail, but a friend of mine who's a director took me to lunch and said, I don't understand why you didn't direct that production. And I said, no, I don't direct. And he said, well, I think that's the problem. I think you know what you want, and just, you know, you need to just have that conversation. Go get what you want. You have a story you want to tell it yourself. Don't ask somebody else to do it. And I really took that to heart. And now I don't limit myself in that way. And this has been kind of an extraordinary year, because I this friend of mine that I have known since high school, he wrote this comedy, and he convinced me to direct it. And it's started in February, and it's August, end of August, and still running. And
What made you decide to direct and act in it?
just why not? I don't know.
No, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't
Yeah.
know. Tell
Okay.
me. Tell
Oh,
me.
okay. I there was a I really wanted to just get every fulfillment out of it. There's a small part that's supposed to be like a Judi Dench type character in the James Bond films, and I just wanted to take on the challenge of learning the British accent and trying to make myself look like Judi Dench, which I actually do a little bit. Which-
I haven't seen it, but Danny has praised your work in it. I haven't seen it, but he has texted us in the group chat letting us know how fabulous you
That's
are.
awesome. Well, it's a lot of fun, and looks like we're gonna keep it running through September. So I'll be letting you know when you can come and see it.
Well, we talk about finding your tribe. Cindy and I are like, I mean, Cindy's involved in so many things. You're like three different theater groups in LA. You're
Yeah.
involved with, yeah. And so this is our community, and you have to go out there and get them and bring them and support them, and I mean, I'm really good at saying no to almost everything. That's one of the great things about being me is that I don't have to do anything. I don't want to really. But at the same time, I'm very supportive of young artists, and on social media. I collaborate with so many people, and do small parts and big parts and in between, and I'm got my hand in so many different projects that hopefully will happen at some point, and so does Cindy. And then, we have our documentary in common, and then, we support each other's work. And your work, will everybody, everybody that I know, I'm always going, what are you doing? What are you doing next? What can we do? You know, so that's what it takes.
I want to know how you guys met.
Oh, I think I hung up on you,
No,
right?
I hung up on you.
Yeah, it was with through Juan Garza, through the script that Juan Garza wrote about his father called Brother Jonas, and Daniel also has a writing credit in it. I don't know if you could say you co-wrote it, but
Yeah,
you're
we co-wrote it, but it's a story that's dear to Juan because it's close to his heart because it's kind of like about his dad. But we have the script, and then we're trying to make it into a
yeah.
film.
So Lorenzo O'Brien and I were trying to get some life into it, and we managed to get. We won tax credits through the California Film Tax incentive program, which at the time, now it's run differently, but at the time it was kind of a lottery, and so we had applied, and we had to shoot 2 days to get. To hang on to our tax credits, so we decided to shoot a sizzle, and yeah, so we just
For those of you who don't know, that's a short teaser
Mhm.
of
yeah.
what the project is going to
Yeah,
be.
So we shot this really, actually, it's a really nice little sizzle with Robert Beltran and Richard Montoya.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
Sal
Robert.
yeah,
Lopez.
yeah. Sal was in it. Actually, you have a little cameo. I have a little
Hmm.
cameo, all around in and around MacArthur Park. And yeah, at the time my office was taken over and turned into a police office. I don't know. We just we even took over Red Studios for
Yeah,
well, on a down day. I don't know. Somehow we got this thing together, and it looked pretty good. And we were trying to get that. Maybe we'll still get that project done.
maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like all of these projects. We've been trying to do them right for like seems like years. The last thing we had with Brother Jonas, it was Alfonso Arao was going to direct it. And then the last time I saw Alfonso, he looked at me and goes, "You look familiar." And I told my friend, "I don't think we're gonna get this movie made with Alfonso."
Well, that's the beauty of show business is that you put projects out and you don't know what is going to be birthed and what takes the back seat,
Mm.
right? That's just part of the
Yeah.
business. It's you're doing your stuff and you see what
Yeah,
materializes.
and
You
once in a while, like with Stand and Deliver, it just everything just lines up perfectly, and like at that time, Tom Musk and Ramon Menendez didn't know anything about East Los Angeles, and they locked out because they met me because they were looking for people, and
Yeah.
then we got lucky because we met all of you, I mean, you remember it took like 7 callbacks, to get everybody together.
I remember well.
And we were a little movie. We were American Playhouse. We were half a million budget, and different people, including our friend Henry Ramos,
Hmm.
helped us get more money. We got money from Ford and Arco and Pepsi, and you know what I mean. It's just like if again, if you have the ganas and the inspiration, you can make things happen.
So let me ask you, because you were there from the beginning to the end, not just as an actor, but you were really part of the production from the very beginning. And then you were there at the end for
Yeah.
Stand and Deliver. What are a couple of takeaways that you got to help you with your productions?
Right. Well, that again is it's all part of this training, that the community-based artist, that you connect with everyone that is available to you, in your surroundings. And at the time when we did Stand and Deliver, this was before cell phones and computers. And what it was is who, and it still is to a certain degree, is who you know, and your word is your bond. It's like if you call somebody, they come because you're calling them. You know, and that is gets lost nowadays. We're talking about, people don't have that kind of like, I don't even want to call it passion, but like commitment to doing something. Somebody calls you, you show up. You know, somebody says, "What do you think about this person?" You say, "They're great." And then even sometimes maybe they're not so great. You support each other, and you help each other, and then you keep your ears and your eyes open. And I'm always looking for the next Stand and Deliver. Um, um, Becoming partners through Stand and Deliver. For a moment, I became very close with Eddie Olmos, and then he put me in American Me, you know, and I having that kind of trust, was so essential in making that film because I knew that he would not, betray that, and I was just able to run with it, to do.
You've also been very good at keeping relationships. You've been very good at nurturing those relationships. Like if I look at your life, you have a lot of those people still in your life. And I think there's something to that. I think that as artists, to have that community and continue to pour into those people, because relationships are two-way street. It's not, well, I know Eddie almost, and no, how are you continuing to keep that going? Because it's like having a garden. If you don't water it and take care of it, it dies. Relationships are like that as well. We meet so many people in the business, but if we don't continue to nurture the relationships, it doesn't go anywhere. So I just wanted to point that out, because you're talking, but you also have put so much time into relationships. So I just want to point that out, because I think that's something that young people need to hear. It is not just meeting your tribe, but it is connecting with the tribe and giving to the tribe. It's like being in a theater group, Cindy. You have dues you have to pay. You have things you have to do to be part of that community. How has that affected you? Because you are in three different theater groups. How has that helped you as an artist?
Mainly this last 2 years, I've put a lot of my energy into Pacific Resident Theater, which is in Venice. And yeah, I'd say that, I'm in that circle. I'm involved as an actor, and I'm involved as a director now. And but I started out as a playwright, and so you just get to know everybody, and you figure out how you can support one another and contribute. And Saturday, I was cleaning a fridge, you know. Yeah, as a director, I also make sure that there's water, for everybody, and yeah, just trying to take care of everything, and try to. I mean, my philosophy is similar to Daniel's, which is, just say yes. Create the possibilities, give everyone the opportunity to do their best work, and try and be around. And it is a pain because I don't live anywhere near Venice. You know, I'm in Mount Washington, so but it's a commitment, and it's really it's a great to be a part of something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not a religion, but it feels like a religion. What we do, it's on that level. Sometimes you get that close to some things like that. Sometimes where you go, wow, man, this blows your mind. But I think you have to honor whatever it is that you do, and so if you say, oh, I'm a director, and then you say, okay, well, do you know the films of Kurosawa? Do you know Fellini? And they go, what's that? I'm like, well, this is the universe that you are in, and you should know. you know do you know who Jenna Rollins is? She's an amazing actress. Do you know who Lillian Gish is? Do you know what I mean? It's like all of that. Have you pulled cable? Have you been on a movie set? Doing craft service. You know, have you edited? It's like all of these things. I mean, you could just spend your whole life learning and never be done. So anybody
Absolutely.
out there says I'm bored, I'm gonna kick their ass.
Well, people who say they're bored don't have a mission. They don't, because if you have a mission, if you have a purpose, you're never bored a day in your life, because there's always something to get done. People who are bored have no purpose, and so their job should be learning what it is that makes them tick. What do I like? If you're bored, go and try something. Is that interesting to you? Go try that. Go try a bunch of things until you find that one thing that you go, oh my God, this is this is spiritual for me. you know Being in the garden, working with the plants, being on stage, taking my camera out, doing crafts, working in a bank, that's spiritual for me. Whatever that is, to search for it instead of going for the okey doke. Well, someone said, oh, go get that job because they pay well, and you just go get that job.
You have
It's not.
you have to love what you do, and then it's not a job. Because you love it. Whatever it is. You know.
And you will keep showing up if you
Oh
love
yeah.
it. You'll keep showing
You're
up.
not looking at the clock.
Something that
I'm like, oh man, when do we leave?
something you both said, that has been the through line of this conversation, which is, if you have ganas, anything is possible. If you have the desire, anything is possible, because if you have that desire, that's going to push you to getting anything you want, anywhere you want to go, anybody you want to meet. It is, how much do you want it? And the misnomer is that if you want it bad enough, it's going to be easy. But that's the opposite. When you want something really bad, there's going to be challenges.
Mm.
So you have to be ready for those
Yeah.
challenges and go, okay, I'm going another day. I'm sure in you putting together this documentary, you have had incredible challenges. So tell me a couple of challenges that you have encountered in the 5 years that you were putting this project together? I want to hear from both of you.
Money. That's still a challenge. And also, I'd say feeling personally just like really alone in this thing a lot of the time. Yeah, trying to figure. Yeah, I've wanted to throw in the towel several times. The biggest thing that came up recently, which is just, it's mind boggling, is that the attorney for Vanessa's mom, who was our dear friend and who really is responsible for driving this whole project forward, because she led me to police practices expert Roger Clark that we talked about. She led me to Paul Hoffman at the UC Irvine School of Law, who we not only interviewed, but we engaged to help us. And he and his colleague, we worked with not only their two law clinics, we worked with their teams of students. We're still working with some of their students. All of this came through Vicky Sarmiento, who unfortunately passed away this year. And it was a
Oh, I'm so
shock to
sorry.
all of us. She was a real driving force behind this whole thing. She and her really her somebody she works with, is actually her cousin. They collected evidence at the very beginning. They started this whole thing really, but she left us. And that just processing that, trying to figure out what's the meaning in that. I'm working on, as I mentioned, finishing it up, a dedication to her, um, and her contribution to this and her contribution to my life, really. um, but yeah, it's just, this much time has gone by, and what does it all mean?
Ian, and I'm
So well, it's a big project. That's what it means. It means it needs to get out. It means that, we're talking about the challenges. There's always, with great stuff, there's always incredible
Mm,
challenges.
yeah.
It just comes with the territory. And when you talk about needing money, have you thought of doing a GoFundMe campaign to get the money to finish the project? To say, hey, we've got this film. This is what is needed. Um, can we count on you to give us a contribution? Because money should never keep us from getting something done. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't know how to ask. I would say to you, get up a GoFundMe campaign, and we all will start hitting social media with it and saying we want to get this finished. There's six of us that could be posting on social media for you, saying, we need to raise money for Vanessa. How much money do you need? Let's put that GoFundMe together, and we can just start bombarding social media to get people to help. Because sometimes we think, as artists, we think we have to do it by ourselves. I just heard you say it's been a lonely process. How can you include us in helping you in those
Let
moments?
me think about that. I'll definitely come up with some stuff. I am happy to report that I got a grant this year from Eastside Arts Initiative, and that is helping us which has helped us get to the sound mix, and will help us
Okay.
finish.
Okay,
So
because
that,
after the film is
but,
done, it's not
but
finished. Then you need
literally,
publicity. You need
literally all
you
the other.
need some other distribution.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that is will be all hands on deck for sure. For sure.
Okay. If you knew Vanessa Marquez, please leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think and share it with your friends. And if you're an actor that takes on really difficult roles and has a hard time getting out of it, check out this next episode we did with the therapist, who gives us really great tools to be able to roll out of those roles and not take them home with us. Check it out now.